response video to Pastor Joe Fox about some stuff. One, we're going to address one of the things that I've addressed in some other videos about employment and financial opportunities at retreat locations in the middle of nowhere. They're extremely limited, and I have a fair amount of experience with this sort of thing, not just in my own personal experience, but observing other people and how things have gone with my career over the years. When I was active duty Marine Corps, I got into reading some of the prophecy stuff, plus hearing some of the preaching about, oh, the end times are coming. There was also a number of predictions about the end of the world happening in the early 90s. And what's interesting is some of those things came true, they just weren't the end of the world. There was another series of geopolitical changes in the world, but it wasn't really the end of the world. But as historians look forward and backward, and all these types of historians look backward, prophets would look forward, of course, they would point toward the early 90s as really the beginning of the war between the United States and radical Islam. That was the beginning of that time period. So when we look at that, we could say, okay, a prophet looking forward was looking accurately. Historians looking backward may look honestly at that and say that it started with the first World Trade Center bombing probably in the early 90s in New York. And you say, yes, the World Trade Center was attacked. New York was attacked in the early 90s. Very clearly it was attacked by radical Islam out of the Middle East, which was a different animal from some of the stuff in the 80s. Prior to that, where the United States is over there screwing around, they get mad, they do something. At that point, they were doing things in the United States. And it didn't start with that. The killing of Meir Kahane by radical Islamists in New York was also the beginning of Islamic warfare in the United States, but a lot of people don't want to talk about that because Kahane and his followers, who were much more forward-thinking than they're given credit for, are like personas non grata in Israel, and of course would probably remain totally unmentioned in the Hebrew Israelite movement. But that's a discussion for another day. When we look at the fact that a lot of the world didn't end in the early 90s, if I'd made different career choices, perhaps similar to Joe Fox's or Pastor Dowell's, I would have been in a position to be a little bit more financially better off and more smug. But at that point, I actually bugged out, moved to a place in the middle of nowhere, and did a series of subsistence level jobs in order to get by. Here's one of the clues. If worries and concerns about food is a major part of your budget, you already got a problem, okay? If I'd simply stayed in military enlisted, I mean, there's a chow hall, okay? There's a chow hall down the, there's a chow hall. People I know that have gone and had a reasonably good standard of living and then went out to try and build a off-grid location all by themselves, or their friends expected them to build it and then they come along after it got developed, they burned through tremendous amounts of money. A couple that I know was doing this since 2000, I think it was early 2012 or late 2011, burned through a tremendous amount of money getting an off-grid location going, and eventually ran into the fact that the MLM, the online income thing, didn't really work as well as expected. There was some other economic stuff, opportunities that weren't really opportunities, they were just exploitation. Low-wage jobs are the norm, okay? Subsistence level income is the norm. And when you're talking about the amount of hours that somebody's going to spend on extremely long-range commutes, I used to commute between Lake County, California and Sonoma County, California, hours, hour and a half. 45 minutes was one of the shorter commutes. And it uses up vehicles, it uses up the fuel, it uses up time, you lose sleep, you're less productive because you're spending so much time traveling from one point to the other. A lot of what I did is I had to go and do it in person. If I were to live locally, the thing is, I was in California, I owned a lot of guns, and I was in a situation where I kind of needed to live someplace where I had kind of control of the land, and you know, I was a little further back because I didn't want somebody calling a law in on me if they figured out that I had a whole lot more guns than I'd registered under the California Assault Weapon Act. And that's one of those constant problems is so I lived out in the middle of nowhere. Out there, they were more tolerant of that sort of thing. California has laws that are written for the whole state, but the way they're enforced is different between the rural and the city areas. And it's vastly different, okay? California, believe it or not, was an open carry state, okay? So, but if you open carry downtown Oakland or Marin County, you're gonna have an instant problem with the police. If you open carry up in Lake County or Modoc County or up in the mountain counties in the Nevada border, it's just a non-issue. But when it comes to making money out there, you're going to have reduced income. Even the people that grow weed out there, then you know you're having to look over your shoulder over that. Whether or not you're a true libertarian and would say, well, this stuff should be legal, there's still a tremendous amount of risk involved with that. And if you're not willing to leave the country and go to the city to market your product, you're stuck seeing only a small portion of what that product is worth, because then you got to deal with the people that are going to come out to the country to buy it.